And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Huda to welcome everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the AGJC's weekly Pre-Shabbat Zoom. Each week, we gather together the Jewish communities of all 6 GCC countries and our families and friends from around the world to hear an inspirational message before Shabbat, light candles, hear a Dvar Torah from Rabbi Abadi, pray and read a section from the weekly Torah portion. Today, we will hear from Fleur Hassan Nahom, who is actually not on the call at the moment. She's running a bit late, but she will join us in a little bit. Fleur is a friend of the community and to many of us individually. She joined us for the first Shabbat dinner that we held in Dubai back in June of 2021 and has been very supportive of our growth and programming. The Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is the umbrella organization for the Jewish communities of the GCC countries that are building and enhancing Jewish life in the region. While each community is independent, we share a common goal and vision for Jewish life to flourish in the Gulf for the benefit of both residents and visitors. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will join us next week as well. To stay updated on AGJC events, please follow us on Twitter at Gulf Jewish and visit our website, www.gulfjewish.org. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Huda. And now we'll start off with candlelighting with RD.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach from Jerusalem. Just before I light candles, just a thought for Sukkot and the Chagim in general. You know, as Olim, we come over to Israel and we leave pretty much all our family and our friends overseas. And it's very hard, it's very bittersweet the first few years that we are here. Because we miss, that's a time when you obviously miss your family and friends. But over years, over a period of time, you build up other family, other friends here. And there are 3 people who are connected to this call, to this group that I just wanted to say have become part of my, high holiday tradition now in Israel. Starting with Fleur for the last 10 years, every single Chag, whether for Rosh Hashanah or Sukkot, I'm with Fleur. It's just wonderful to be with family, and she actually lives just over there. I was in her sukkah the other day. And another part of it is the actual davening. I mean, that's the family part, yeah, being with family and friends over the Chag. But the davening part, I have been so blessed that for the last 12 years, Rabbi David Rosen, who I know was on a few weeks ago, but he was on this call singing just before Rosh Hashanah. And Rabbi David Rosen and Sharon have the most wonderful minyan in their house that they have hosted for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for the last, I think, 20 years. I've been going for 12 years. And it is the absolute highlight of my whole davening over the period. And something that I also added into my traditions of being in Jerusalem now, as with being with the Gibraltarian family here, with Isaac, Hassan, and Fleur on Erev Yom Kippur. Every single Yom, I'm so used to Kol Nidrei and Ashkenazi forum, and for the last 5 years, I've been listening to Isaac give his beautiful Kol Nidrei, which I've really cherished and loved. So I just, wish for everybody that we are, always surrounded by our family and friends, and new family and friends. And without much further ado, as Jake would say, I will light Shabbat candles. Now, because I'm I'm living temporarily in a building site, and the sprinkler system has not been connected yet. And every Shabbat, as most people will find now, going on cruises, going into hotels, dormitories, hospitals, you can't light candles anymore. You have to light, if you want to light, you light LED lights. So we brought out the Shabbat collection, these LED lights, and I actually light them now every single Shabbat because I'm usually out for Shabbat, usually at Fleur's, and it's a little peace of mind, and also it takes a little bit of a while to get used to not lighting a candle, but actually just switching it on. So here are my candles, and this is every single week. I light 5, 2 for Shabbat and 3 for my children. And I put them on like this. I leave them for the whole of Shabbat. They stay lit for the whole of Shabbat. It's lovely. I'm not sure if you can see that. And anyway. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'tzutav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat v'shel Yom Tov. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach.
Thank you so much. while we're not all blessed to hear Isaac for Kol Nidre, we are really lucky to have him this week and all weeks when he joins us, and especially when he leads us. So Isaac, over to you for Yedid Nefesh.
Thank you for those lovely words from all of you. Yedid Nefesh, Avarachman, Meshoch Avdecha, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayal, Yishtachave mol adarecha, Ki ye'erav lo yedidutecha, Minof etzof vechol tam, Adonai zif ha'olam, nafshi chola avatecha, Hanael narefa nala, בהרות לנועם זיווח, אז תתחזק ותתרפא, והייתה לך שפחת עולם, ותיק אמונה, רחמך וחוסנה על בן אהובך, כי זה כמה נחשף, לראות בתפארת וזך, אנא אלי מחמד ליבי, חוסנה ואל תתעלם, היגע להנה ופרוס חביב עלי, את סוכת שלומך, תאיר ארץ מכבודך, נגילה ונשמחה בך, מהר אהוב כי בא המועד, וכונני כי מעולם. לררי לי לי לי, לררי לי לי לי, לררי לי לי לררי לי לי לי, לררי לי לי לי, לררי לי לי לי.
Thank you so much, Isaac. And now over to Rabbi Joel Newman, who will lead us in L'Chadodi.
Thank you. This is certainly a treat and different from anything that we've done before. So I appreciate the invite. I'm actually in Bahrain, which is unusual. We flew in from Tel Aviv yesterday. We're here for the weekend and then leading a tour in Israel with my congregation from Vail, Colorado. Usually I'd like to say everyone join with me, but I know that's impossible. And then when I look at this large crowd, I'm thinking, what possible tune does everybody know that works for everyone in L'Chadodi? I'll just guess, and then we'll just do the best we can. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmiyanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, v'shem u'tiferet v'tila. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. Likrat Shabbat lefuranelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nisucha, sof maseh b'machshava chila. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. Migdash melech melucha, umitzi mitoch afecha, rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, v'hu yachmo alaychem la. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. L'Chadodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabla. ימים ושמאל תפרוצי, את אדוני תריצי, היד איש בן ארצי ונשמחה ונהגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Now, I excuse you from not standing up and facing the rear of the sanctuary, wherever you are, but we normally would, as I invite you. Bohui v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzahala, toch emunei am segula, bohi chala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. And now we're going to change the usual schedule for this week. Just Flor's getting to her location shortly. And in the meanwhile, we'll hear from Rabbi Abadi with his Devar Torah.
Hi. Thank you very much. I guess we'll wait for Fleur after. As you know, we are all celebrating the holiday of Sukkot. This is the last of the holidays in this season of the year. We still have a few more days to go. Of course, the holiday of Sukkot, as you know, everybody thinks it's a 9-day holiday. It's actually a 7-day holiday. Then there is the 8th day holiday, which we call the Shemini Atzeret. It's the 8th day of the holiday. And then there is an extra day in the diaspora called Simchat Torah, the holiday in which we rejoice with the Torah scroll. And today, this Shabbat is known as Shabbat Hol HaMoed, the Shabbat in the middle of the holiday. And it's a very special Shabbat, of course, because it is a holiday and a Shabbat. But in ancient times, before Shabbat, in the first few days of the holiday, we used to celebrate, and I say we as a nation, we used to celebrate what was known as Simchat Bet HaShoeva. It's the basically the celebration of the house of the water drawing. And it was the water that was drawn from the river known as the Shiloah that really surrounds Jerusalem. It's not seen today. It is really underground. And for those of you who may have taken a trip to what's known as Ir David, the city of David in Jerusalem, and have gone down into the excavations all the way down, you end up in a channels where the water of the Shiloah are. And those are all the way down of the Temple Mount. And so the custom was 2,000 years ago and more to go down there, bring water, and climb up the mount, where now they're also discovering that that road that leads to the Temple Mount from Ir David, from the city of David, with a parade. It was a parade of Kohanim, of Leviim, with music, with dances, with jugglers, with torches, juggling and everything. All the way to the Temple Mount, to where the temple was, to where the altar was, and the ceremony was to pour water, in a sense, to purify the altar and to clean it up for the occasion of the holiday. It was one of the happiest occasions, actually, that our sages tell us, where, as I said, there was gymnastics, there were jugglers, there was music, of course, there were fire torches all around that will illuminate Jerusalem for miles and miles away from these torches. We don't have that nowadays, but we celebrate the holiday of Sukkot in many, many, many ways. Interestingly enough, if this wasn't a holiday, this Shabbat we would read the last parasha of the Torah, known as Vezot HaBeracha, and this is the blessing. And that's how the Torah is concluded. It is the blessing that Moshe gave before his passing away. And he dedicated this parasha, this blessing, to each tribe separately, and to each tribe gave them their blessing that, in a sense, belongs to them, or a blessing that really defined them and identified them as a separate tribe. It is one of the most beautiful blessings that we have in the Torah, and certainly we don't read it this Shabbat. We read it actually on the last day, on the day of Simchat Torah, on the day that is known as the rejoicing with the Torah. Why it's called Simchat Torah? Because we conclude the entire 5 books of Moses cycle of 1 year reading, and we begin again with Perashat Bereshit, with the Genesis, the book of Genesis, and Perashat of Genesis. So the beauty of this holiday is that it's a happy occasion. It's an occasion that has been celebrated for not centuries, but for millennia, and it continues to be celebrated. And also we celebrate the conclusion of the Torah reading and the beginning of the reading. This is really the cycle of life. The cycle of life is that it never ends. Whatever it ends, it begins again, and whatever it begins, it has ended before that. And this is the life of not just Jews, but of all of humanity, where last week, Perasha that I explained, it was a harsh one, describing exile and describing misbehavior and describing situations that the Israelites will have to endure. And then this parasha is completely the opposite. It's describing blessings, sovereignty, future promises. And so it really defines the life, our life as a nation, as a people, as individuals, and as humans, in which we have our ups and downs. We have times in which we are doing very well, and unfortunately we have times in which we're not doing very well. But we should always look to the future, in which that pendulum will swing back to doing well, to blessings. So as we conclude this holiday in the next few days, let me extend to you, indeed, the real New Year begins after the holiday of Sukkot. Yes, we celebrated Rosh Hashanah 2 weeks ago, but kind of with this, with Kippur and Sukkot, the real New Year begins after Sukkot. So let me wish all of you a Shana Tova again. May this year be a different one than last year. If last year was a good one, let this one be a better one. If last year was not such a good one, then let this one be a good one. To all of us, to all of humanity, and hoping that all the blessings of this parasha will come true and will accompany us for the rest of our lives. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, and Shana Tova.
Thank you, Rabbi Abadi. And now we'll head back to Rabbi Newman, who's going to lead us in some parsha reading.
Thank you. As I was reading through this, it talks about it's one that you wouldn't want to give to a bar mitzvah boy, because all it talks about are all the sacrifices, and then they have to write a speech about that, and it only becomes more complicated. But when we think about the sacrifices in this parsha, which will be translated, I know, by someone else, when we're talking about bulls and rams and goats and all kinds of offerings, it's the different sacrifice I think each of us have given in our own lives to bring Judas into so many parts of the world, as I had that same opportunity in the Navy, which is why I ended up in Bahrain so many times. So let me read to you the few verses that were given to me that we take from when we talk about Shmini Atzeret. Yom Shmini Atzeret yelachem kol melechet avodat lo ta'asu v'kravtem ola ishe reach nochach ladonai par echad ayil echad kevasim b'nei shana Shiva Timimim. Minchatam v'nis kehem lapar la'ayil ul v'kesem b'mis param kamishpat. U'seir chatat echat milbad olat hatamid minchata v'nis ka. Elet asu ladonai v'moadechem levad minidrechem v'nidvotechem levo lotechem ul min chotechem ul nis kechem ul shal mechem. Those are all the sacrifices we could possibly think of that we'd want to make on this holiday. And now for a good translation.
What a wonderful segue over to Justine for the translation.
Hi, everyone. On the 8th day, you shall hold a solemn gathering. You shall not work in your occupations. You shall present a burnt offering and the offering by fire of pleasing odor to Hashem. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 yearling lambs without blemish. The meal offering and libations for the bull and the ram and the lambs in the quantities prescribed, and 1 goat for a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering, its meal offering and libation. These you shall offer to Hashem at the stated times, in addition to your votive and free will offering, be they burnt offerings, meal offerings, libations, or offerings of well-being. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Justine. And Isaac has a special thing that he's prepared for today. Do you want to just give us a quick, brief overview before you jump in?
Yes, I am. As the learned rabbi said a few minutes ago, the Chag finishes with Simchat Torah and the cycle of life. In Gibraltar, we have the custom, as some of you have heard before, to include Ladino as part of the liturgy. And I'm going to sing 2 different piyutim, 2 different hymns that reflect the Ladino Hebrew for the Hakafot, for the taking of the Sifrei Torah around the Bet HaKnesset. היא תורה לנו ניתנה כמגדל הלבנון, מראש ניר וחרמון, תשורי מראש המנה, היא תורה לנו ניתנה. Esta es la excelencia, fuentes de aguas muy claras, que es la luz de nuestras caras. Todos hagan la reverencia, de ellas tomemos licencia, que nos dará el galardón, Keren bebal amon, una gente muy leitana, y Torah lanu nitana, betupim ubimcholot, con alegría y placeres, salgan hombres y mujeres, diciendo las zemirot, la donan niflaot, ki mehar paranofia, Señor venga el Mashiach. Sepamos, Señor Adana, y Torah lanu nitana, Gelile Zahar se cerquen, Señora de los leitados, gente que tal joya tienen, sean bienaventurados. Cuando fuimos ajuntados en el monte de Sinai, Bani matem ladonai, Ani ba'u Oshiana, y Torah lanu nitana, dieron kolot ubrakim, cuando Har Sinai neshan, Anochi be'anan, el nora b'shechakim, ayom atem nitzavim, para recibir la ley delante de un santo rey. Bo ulefana birnana, y Torah lanu nitana, Arninu kol Israel, a quien sostiene el mundo, todos no con nuestro justo, con Shirim Shirulael, Kumuna la Betel, con Zebachim y Olot, haremos los korbanot, con grande querer y gana, y Torah lanu nitana. That is the first one, and I'm going to sing another one. Let me go to the next page. Here we are. יקרבנו אדוני לעבודתו אל בית המקדש למען זכות אבותינו. Padre piadoso, aproxima el tiempo, Dios fiel en כמוהו, Adonai מהר בנה בית המקדש ונעשה את עולותינו, אברחמן קרב זמן, Karev Zeman, El Neman, Dios nos escapará de un mal reinado. Amén, amén, amén. Por mano de David nuestro Redentor, Padre piadoso, aproxima el tiempo, Dios fiel, Samechenu Adonai, y Mashiach ben Yishai, וקבץ גלויותינו, אברחמן קרב זמן, el neman, Padre piadoso, aproxima el tiempo, Dios fiel.
Thank you so much, Isaac. And now over to Dorian, who's going to introduce Fleur.
Thanks so much, Ariella. Isaac, that was really beautiful. I'm always being introduced to new parts of your repertoire. I'm not surprised it was so nice to listen to. I'm Dorian Barak, president of the UAE Israel Business Council, and lucky to be a longtime resident of both Israel and the UAE. You'll need to forgive me for turning off my video for better bandwidth. I just, for some reason, can't get what I'm looking for here with 3G. It's a special honor for me today to introduce Fleur Hassan-Nahum, Jerusalem's Deputy Mayor for Foreign Relations, Economic Development, and Tourism, and one of my closest friends and colleagues. I met Fleur 30 years ago. Wow, that dates us. When we were both students in Jerusalem, and we've been really almost family since. What can I say about Fleur? Fleur is one of the most eloquent and powerful voices for regional integration and coexistence, and she has been for many years. As you all must know, Fleur grew up in Gibraltar, which hosts a flourishing Jewish community at the heart of Sephardi Jewry, a community that uniquely blends Europe and the Maghreb. Her mother, of blessed memory, was from Morocco, where many Gibraltarian Jews have their roots, and her father was the longtime prime minister. She studied law at King's College London, qualified as a barrister, practiced in London a bit, before immigrating to Israel in 2001, where she entered the nonprofit world with a storm, as one can say. First at the JDC in social and economic affairs. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the organization. And then as executive director of Tikva, the organization that saves abandoned and abused Jewish children from the former Soviet Union. And they've done amazing work, by the way, during the current ongoing war, really to bring these children to safety into an environment where they can live in dignity as Jews and as individuals. In 2016, Fleur entered public service as a Jerusalem city councilor. And very soon afterwards, by 2018, she was appointed deputy mayor. Fleur is a true dynamo and has left a very visible mark on the fabric of Jerusalem. Anyone who has joined her for one of her famous Shabbat dinners or Mimuna, or reads the press around the Abraham Accords knows exactly what I'm talking about. In addition to her strong promotion of tourism and development initiatives in Jerusalem, Fleur is known throughout the city for her advancement of women's rights, the Arab community, social contribution initiatives, marginalized populations, and the fight for a pluralistic Jerusalem. Fleur is also the leading voice for Israel's thriving Anglo community and one of the first stops for any Anglos who find themselves in Jerusalem, whether it's for a weekend or for a longer period of time or if they move there. She and I founded the UAE Israel Business Council in 2020, even before the Abraham Accords were signed, together with Ariella and Isaac and Justine and others. And we're really proud of the 8,000 Emiratis, Bahrainis, Saudis, Israelis, and others who have joined our growing community. I'm truly fortunate to work with Fleur on a daily basis on cultural and social initiatives, on business, and on other matters between the Israel and the UAE. And if you have anything that we can be helpful with to bring our countries closer together, of course, please let us know. And with that, let me turn it over to Fleur. Fleur.
Thank you, Dorian, for a wonderful, wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone. As you can tell by my voice, we've been having a bit too much fun here this week in Jerusalem, but it's an honor to be amongst this incredible community. Half of these people here are my friends, family. You've heard basically all the tunes we have in Gibraltar already through Isaac. And of course, Ariel and Justine, who are my co-founders of the Gulf Israel Women's Forum. Adi, thank you for the promotion of my house as a Shabbat destination. And, you know, it's always great having you. You are family, you know that. So I was asked by Ariella to talk a little bit about my experience last month in a very, such a privilege to have been selected by the American Embassy in Jerusalem to be part of something called the Distinguished Humphreys Fellowship Program, named after one of the American vice presidents and part of the Fulbright family. And ultimately, I was approached by these wonderful women who work, who head up the American Center in Jerusalem, Kim Natoli and Felicity Aziz. These are the ladies in the city of Jerusalem where who I go to when I want to do collaborations between Arabs and Jews in the city. I have a very supportive community in the American Embassy. And so we've been doing programs for a long time. And another interesting development that Isaac, Ariel, of course, Justine and Dorian are with me, with the American Embassy. Hopefully we're going to be putting together cultural, Abraham Accords Cultural Festival centered around Jerusalem, but that's for another day and another announcement. We're working on that very hard. But this is the relationship that I have with the American Embassy in Jerusalem, which of course was a game changer for us. And about 4 months ago, they come up to me and they're like, we've nominated you for this fellowship program. You get to go to Harvard for 6 days, do this executive education course with these leaders from around the world, and then we send you to a city. I'm like, well, where do I have to sign up? And they're like, just send us your passport picture. So honestly, sometimes in life, especially in politics, you work so hard for things that you don't get. And then something just comes and lays on your plate. And this is one of those things. And so I was honored and excited to set out on this fellowship program. The people on my program was just another 9 leaders from around the world. We had from Mexico, from Zambia, from Ghana, from Nepal, from the Philippines, from Albania. And it was just an incredible experience. And I want to just sum up, I guess, the main lessons that I got from all of this. We were part of 10 people, but those 10 people were part of 70 people at the Harvard program for 6 days. And there were leaders from all around the world there. There were people from Saudi. And those are the first people I went up to. And I said, I'm Fleur, I'm from Jerusalem. And I very much look forward to the day that you will be joining us at the Abraham Accords. And they smiled, and we continued other conversations. So first of all, I got there representing Israel, representing Jerusalem, a little bit with my guns loaded, thinking, oh my God, this is Harvard. This is the center of liberal intellect. They're going to be attacking me for being Israeli. And the first thing that I realized is that nobody was attacking me. Everybody was very nice, happy to meet me. And that maybe sometimes in Israel, we're a little bit more paranoid than we should be, because most people, and maybe because they were all my age, most people, midlife career leaders, most people were very welcoming. I didn't get one negative facial expression or comment, not from the people and not from the faculty. And so my number one lesson is that perhaps we build up in our heads the opposition to who we are as a country and as a people. And maybe we should be a little less paranoid. So that not that we don't have our problems, but to me, those 6 days were an eye-opener into the fact that most people like us. And it makes sense when we look at the context of the Abraham Accords. The second thing, which is less positive, is that very few people are really aware about the Abraham Accords. And that is sad to me, because I really believe that in the last 2 years, we've done so much, we've achieved so much, we've cracked and broken through a blocked ceiling where we had felt that we were, isolated regionally, even with the countries that we already had peace with. And we here, people here in this community that live in this kind of Abraham Accords, let's call it a bubble, but we live in this reality. And unfortunately, many people, even leaders from all around the world, are not aware. And so my second insight was, we need to do better to talk outside our bubble. And the bubble, of course, is a regional bubble. Maybe the bubble is a Jewish world bubble, but we need to figure out how what we're doing here gets spread around, not just, of course, mainstream media, but leaders from the rest of the world, to try and bring them into this model of peace, this people-to-people peace that we've built and we're building so well, and use that as a model for other countries with other regional struggles, from the feedback that I received from the leaders that I was with on this incredible journey. And the third thing that I learned is that it doesn't matter where you come from around the world. There were lots of people from Africa, Australia, Latin America, North America, China, the Philippines, as I mentioned, Saudi, Europe, wherever you looked. 6 days made us all open up about our challenges as leaders. What are we facing? How do we cope with it? And after 6 days, I realized that when you boil down all of our different challenges as leaders, we actually share very, very similar challenges. They may have different flavors and different colors, but the core challenges that we have are very universal. And so when I left there, I left with the understanding that wherever we're from, we have way more that unites us than what divides us, which is what we've been exploring here in the region with the Abraham Accords. But I now had the privilege of giving that or seeing that through a universal lens. And so I think with the beautiful words we heard earlier from Rabbi Abadi, and with Moses's parting words in the last few portions of the Torah, the one that we had last week was all about the fact that ultimately we have to take responsibility for ourselves. It's no use blaming God when things go wrong. And so I really couldn't think of a more apt way to, finish the cycle of the Torah and start a new one. And with Moses's lessons, that ultimately it is on us to make a better reality for ourselves, our families, our countries, and our region. And this is certainly the platform that is doing that every single week. So thank you for keep inviting me back. Thank you very much. Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Fleur. It's such a treat to hear you in all forums, especially when you get to share with us how you're helping to tell our story with the broader world. So thank you so much for joining us today. And now I'll move over to Jean for the prayer for peace.
Thank you. Thanks, Ariella. And it's great to see friends from the UAE, Israel Business Council, and the Gulf of Israel Business Forum here. So it's great to see you guys. Fleur, thank you for those words. I've been spending time in New York as I'm sort of back and forth Dubai, New York, as I'll be in the coming months. And I'm thrilled to hear what you've been focused on. I'm very aware as well of spreading the peace message and the message about all we've been working on. So that was great. I'm going to read the prayer for peace. This is adapted from Rabbi Nachman ben Fega. Lord of peace, divine ruler, to whom peace belongs, master of peace, creator of all things, may it be your will to put an end to war and bloodshed on earth, and to spread a great and wonderful peace over the whole world. Help us and save us all, and let us cling tightly to the virtue of peace. Let there be a truly great peace between every person and their fellow, and let there be no discord between people, even in hearts. Let us never shame any person on earth, great or small. May it be granted unto us to fulfill thy commandment, to love thy neighbor as thyself, with all our hearts and souls and bodies and possessions. God, who is peace, bless us with peace. Amen and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Jean. And now I will say the prayer for the GCC, and then we'll head over to Isaac. May he who gives salvation to kings and dominion to princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify, and uplift His Majesty, the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, His Majesty, the Sultan of Oman, His Highness, the President of the UAE, His Highness, the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness, the Emir of Qatar, and all their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings in his mercy put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all their counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be his will, and let us say Amen. And now we'll turn it over to Isaac, who will sing us out. Shalom Aleichem.
שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. בשבתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שבת שלום, חג שמח.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.